So we are going to get into layer masking and some other areas that we didn't get a chance to cover in part one. So what are we doing now? So we're going to start with the layer masking part to show you how that works in general. And the way I'm going to do it is this. I'm going to open a file here in this football project folder. It's a bunch of different files here. If you go and look at them individually, you got a stadium here, probably at a high school. You have a light, stadium light. You have this picture of this football player here with his arm up. You have this hexagon pattern here. You have Eastern Division champions, and you have this stock image of this texture here. So what is needed is all this stuff needs to be put together to make one cohesive picture. So you want to start off probably with the more difficult thing, which is this picture here of this young man. We need to get him isolated by himself without anything else surrounding him, all the rest of this picture surrounding him. So that would involve layer masking. So the idea of the mask, let me bring the picture back up. The idea of the mask is to hide everything that we don't want to see, not necessarily erase it. Because if you erase it, you don't have the ability to bring it back. But if you hide it, you have that flexibility of being able to bring information back that you thought you didn't need, and all of a sudden you realize you need it, and things like that. Difficulty. That's going to happen. Trying to select this person away from the rest of this crowd for what's going on. So the selection primer that we went through in lecture 5, you would go through your different steps to go through the process of selecting him and then having that selection be used as part of your final work. So let's go through that right now. Let me go file to open. And let's go find that football project and find this number 50 file here. Um, color theory, we talked about a color profile. So this is going to show me that, hey, the color profile that I have for my working color profile is different from what's embedded into this file. Do I want to change it over? Just a reminder, usually that answer is yes. So the second radio button is what you're going to choose to be able to convert it to your color profile. So if there's any color corrective things that need to be done, you'll see the image as your color profile, how your colors are being displayed on your computer. So it helps with the color correction. Um, let's go through the hard thing. Using or trying to figure out which tool to use to try to select him as quickly as possible out of this picture. So again, you have your different tools in the toolbox in this little section right here. So two column layout, second button down in the second column is my quick select tool, my object select tool, the magic wand tool. Magic Wand's probably not going to work, even though majority of him is blue. Then you got his skin tone, and then that blue is existing in other places. May not be good to use. Quick selection tool could work. In general, you could change the size of the brush with the square bracket keys to make it big enough to make sure, like inside of his arm, it gets no bigger than the width of his arm there. So that way when you click and drag over those particular areas, it's going to select it pretty well. Now, before you actually use the tool, a couple other things I would suggest you do up here in the options bar with quick select. Number one, the brush itself that you're using when you hit the little drop down to pick the brush. Mentioned this before, turning the hardness level down some, not a whole lot, just, down within probably the 70s or 80s or something like that. So that way you have a slightly soft edge brush that you're using the quick select with. So this way, those soft transitional areas, like in the helmet, could possibly the face mask could be selected from the background, possibly. It's never going to be perfect, but it's going to be something to help with that. The spacing, turning that spacing number down to somewhere around the 10% range is what I normally do for almost all of my different brushes. So that's another thing you could do to kind of make this a little bit easier in the process. So now, last thing is a couple other options. There is this check mark here for enhance edge. If you want to check that on, that sometimes helps make the edge selection a little bit better than what you initially get. Like once you, as you clicking and dragging, you'll see how the selection will grow and grow. And then when you let go of your mouse, it'll do one more enhancement before it finalizes. So you'll kind of see that happen sometimes. Now, one last thing is this where it says select subject. That drop down next to it, if you choose the cloud option, that will give you a more detailed result out of what you're doing because it starts to employ the AI usefulness to try to help enhance this selection use a little bit more. So now, just click and drag over the picture, trying to stay within the body of this football player here, trying to make sure that the circle does not touch the outside edge of your player. You're going to get as much as you can as quickly as you can around the hair, around the head, in certain areas like right here at the arms and such. You're going to pick up more of the background than you actually wanted because again, this is not a perfect tool. This is something to kind of get you started, and those detail areas, you have the option, ironic name, you have the option to use the option key or the alt key, press and hold that button down, and then you can click and drag across those areas in the background that got picked up that could possibly be removed. And you could try to remove it as carefully as you can. Again, try not to touch your subject this time and only get those areas that you want to remove. You can use the square bracket keys to change the size of the brush and then go back to holding the Alt or Option key down to try to take more away and then let go of that Option key to add on. The thing is that you're going to be going back and forth with that a lot. And not saying that you can't get this, something like this done with this one tool. It'll just take you some time to go through the process. And sometimes that time is almost being wasted because, again, the idea is to use these tools as a general selection tool. Get as much as you can, get as fast as you can. Those little small details, you can go into that selected mask, get that a little lot better. So, selected mask. I get to this point, I'm happy. Could I use a different tool or a different a different selection tool to try to enhance this a little bit more? Yeah, I could, but just go into select and mask at this point. And again, it's a button up here in the options bar, or if you go to your select menu, you'll see select and mask if you don't see the button. And it takes you into the interface where you can further enhance this, with your different tools of, using your quick selection tool a little bit more in here to keep adding to or taking away from your selection. Same idea. You can click and drag to add to your selection, or you can hold down your Alt or Option key to take away from your selection with the quick select tool, if that helps, because you have the overlay and whatever color you made that overlay, and from previous use, and you can zoom in closer, for detail, enhancement. This picture is not that good as far as the quality. It's probably like 72 pixel per inch, so it's not that good when you zoom in real close to it. And it was taken off an old iPhone, so don't at me too hard about this. But you can do that if you wish to. You also have your paintbrush tool, your brush tool to be able to paint. And again, you could paint the mask in or hold down the Alt or Option key to paint the mask, to paint the mask in or out and add to or subtract from the selection. Again, you're taking the mask away from what you're looking at, you're adding to your selection. Right now, I'm taking away from my selection, trying to get, detail around the face. When you're using the brush tool, you have the options bar up there to be able to change the same brush options of softer edge of the brush. The spacing is low numbers. So that way you have a better chance of, painting in these details. And this is the thing that will take you a incredible amount of time, dealing with a picture like this. trying to make sure those little soft, nuanced areas are, taken care of. And it will take you a while to get through, especially when you get up here around the helmet and trying to get all the details within the face mask, trying to take this little area uh, out of the face mask, like in between the face mask and the background there, trying to take that out without removing his hands. It just takes a while. We're not going to take this time, not in this, because not necessary. Um, Again, you have the ability to do all this, and then you come over here to the right and start playing with these global refinements here. With the smooth, the feather, and the and everything else to try to make this a little bit better than what you had it. With the painting, you could try to smooth out some of the rough edges, increase contrast to change the difference on those little hard edge areas. Maybe play with the feather a little bit. Like I mentioned before, less than 2 pixels is good with the feather. And if you do that, then you want to do the shift edge as well. The shift the edge in by, in a negative value by a couple of percentage points too. So that way that soft transitional edge that you're creating with the feather and the smooth is going to be right at the edge of your subject and not, you know, uh, eating into your subject too much. Mention about the decontaminate colors, and good job, most of you who got the idea of that and got my answer put in. Thank you very much. But with the decontaminate colors, I could possibly use it, but not at 100%. You'd probably want to go with small percentages. It'll probably work well with things like wispy ends of hair and things like that. It works pretty decent at a small amount, but it does distort the picture to a point where I don't like it and you can't go and correct it later. So I usually don't use the decontaminate colors at all. It is there, it's an option, but I just something I don't use. I want to make sure my output 2 is outputting to a new layer with a layer mask. So that way it'll create a brand new layer on this file and apply this as a layer mask. So when I hit OK, that's what I'm going to get. Background layer, the visibility is turned off. The new background layer is created. The whole picture is there. And then there's this little black and white rectangle, which this black and white thumbnail, which is the layer mask. At any point in time, I can double click onto the layer mask thumbnail, get right back into, fixing again, painting that what I didn't get around the arm there and down here on the bottom part of the arm and on the helmet that I didn't get. I can fix those things. And then when I leave out of here, before I hit OK, I want to make sure my output is set to my output is set to layer mask. So that way it modifies the layer mask that's already there, that I already have, and not try to make a brand new one. So again, if you double click onto the layer mask thumbnail, it lets you edit. And before you hit OK, make sure the output is set to the layer mask. So it updates the current layer mask you have and not make a whole new one, because there's no need to make a new one. All right, so that's what I went over in the last class with the layer masking. As simple, complicated as that. Let's talk about other things you could do with the layer masking while I'm here. The mask itself, in your layers palettes, if you click onto the thumbnail of that layer that has the layer mask on it, you're going to see that thumbnail will have this little extra highlight bar line going around it. If you click on the layer mask thumbnail, you can see how that highlight kind of changes over. This is telling you what layer you have selected at the time. Why is that important? Well, you have the ability, if you want, to paint with black, white, or shades of gray directly on the layer. And if you on the layer mask, and if you do that, where you're painting directly on the layer mask, you would be able to. I'm sorry, people are trying to call me. I'm trying to stop my phone from ringing. Um, if you paint directly onto the layer mask, you will modify that mask. So instead of going into that select and mask feature and doing your painting, you could just do it directly right here if you want to with your brush tool, painting onto that layer mask with shades of gray or straight black or straight white. So let's talk about the preparation you need to do if you're going to do that. Number one, you would pick your paintbrush tool. Number two, up in the options bar, you would pick the type of brush you want to use. Now, this is where um, the only two brushes that you pretty much should use, and I'm saying it kind of loosely on the should part, is your soft round and your hard round brush option you have under these what is it, this general brushes section right here when you go and pick your brushes, because these two are the ones that you will use the most when it comes to something like this layer masking. Hard round, of course, you want the hard edges like around his arm right there. The soft one is probably like around the hair and the skin. When I'm getting trying to get little detail areas, probably use the soft round brush for that. So you would double click on one of those two, and that would be the brush you use. Can you use the other brushes? Yeah, perfectly fine. But those other brushes will give you more of an artistic flair of things instead of just the standard, like, hey, I'm trying to fix something kind of brush. I call it corporate brushes because the creative world and the corporate world are kind of two separate entities that have to clash together a lot of times. And when we talk about things in the corporate world, it's very hard. It's not creative. It's something that is just work. Whereas in the creative space, you're going to be a lot more creative with things. So you'll have some flexibility with stuff. So some of the brushes are corporate, some of the brushes are creative. Hopefully that analogy makes sense. Anyway, what I'm going to be able to do is pick that brush, look at my color mode to make sure my color mode is set to normal, make sure my opacity is set all the way to 100%. My flow is at 100%. The smoothing is a number that I want it to be. Again, the smoothing is just how, smooth of a line that you paint. So, having a lower percentage will be a little more jittery of a line, but it's a little more accurate with how you move your mouse. So, depending on what you're painting with and how you're painting. The last thing is the colors. Now, when it comes to the colors, you have the two color squares in your toolbox. Whatever color that they're set to, a couple of little things that I don't think I covered when I was introducing this stuff, but up in the top, like right above and to the right of the two squares here, you have this little bent double arrow that you can click onto. That switches the two colors. Whatever colors are there, it just switches them back and forth. The letter X on your keyboard is a keyboard shortcut that does the same thing. In the lower left, there's these two little minified versions of those two squares. Clicking on that will give you your default colors, which is white and black. So if the colors are not already black and white, clicking onto that button will do that for you as well. Hitting the letter D on your keyboard for default will give you your two default colors, which is black and white. Those two keyboard shortcuts, hitting the X and hitting the letter D, translates to some of the other Adobe programs, with one small exception. Switching the two colors back and forth. In other programs, you may have to hold down the Shift key while you hit the letter X to switch the two colors back and forth. It's just the way that the programs are kind of built in. But you got to make sure that you have, when you're painting with on the layer mask, you want to start off with black and white. And then you get to the letter X to switch back and forth about which one's in front. So here's the way this goes. By rule, I'm going to make my brush kind of big so you can see this happen easier. If you paint with white as your top color, you're taking away from the mask. All right. So white does what is called reveal. White will reveal the picture from the mask. So it takes the mask away, reveals the picture. Painting with black as your top color will hide the picture and add to the mask. All right. So black hides, white reveals. That's the mantra or the terminology that's came up with a long time ago. So black will hide, white will reveal. That's just simple thing to remember. Now, if you paint with shades of gray, meaning if I take my color and paint with black, for instance, but I turn my opacity down to a lower opacity, now I'm painting with shades of gray. Well, let me paint with white. I'm painting with shades of gray, so I'm not painting the whole picture back in 100%. I'm painting in at a smaller percentage. If I paint with white or if I paint with black, I'm taking it away at that same, lowered percentage. So I'm not taking it all away at once. I'm not adding it all in at once. It's gradual. This is real good when you want to still have some of the background as part of your final piece, but you want to, not have it bring back all the way. Just take your zoom, take your opacity and turn it up or down. And now you're painting with different shades of gray to paint in or paint out your picture. That makes it kind of a neat little thing to be able to do that you can't really do in that select and mask too easily. You're painting 100%, like with the brush tool, you're painting at 100% all the time, not at this lowered percentage. Now, is this important for like this picture? Probably not for this picture, but in other parts of what we're going to do, you're going to utilize that and be able to paint manually onto a layer mask as you feel that you need to. Now, other parts of layer masking, some of the basic things. Holding down your shift key on your keyboard and clicking onto the mask will temporarily disable the layer mask. You'll get this big red X across the mask. So right now it's just deactivated. It's not deleted or anything. It's just deactivated for now. So maybe you're using that to kind of review or see what you've got going on, like a before and after kind of thing. If you hold down Shift and click on the layer mask again, it turns the mask back on. So that way you can go back to whatever you were doing. If you hold down your Alt or your Option key on your keyboard and click on the layer mask, it will reveal the mask itself. So this way, if there's little stray areas, see there's these little areas of what I was masking in and out that were not there. I didn't see that before, but now I can see it. So you could see some of that black, that stark black and white detail that you may have missed in your other masking things that you were doing. You probably have a little easier time of seeing that and be able to fix and correct those little things. Again, you hold down your Alt or Option key and click on the mask again. It will pop it back to letting you see the picture. Now, what happens at this point? With this being masked, I can go back to part one with the duplicating the layer. You know, right clicking, duplicating the layer. I can move that layer to a whole different file, you know, by just changing the destination with the layer mask and everything intact. I'm not at that point yet, but that's one of the things that we're going to be doing with this particular picture in this part of this project that I'm going to do. But I don't like this mask. I want to start all over again because I messed it completely up. No matter what I'm trying to do, it's always getting bad. Plus, somebody finally told me, hey, you know, I already made that selection around the football player. You can use that to make your mask. And so you can use that if you want to. And after I finish finding that person and probably, you know, beating him with a wiffle ball bat or something like that, because they didn't tell me earlier. If I want to get rid of a mask, you can right click on the layer mask. There is delete the layer mask that you can do. And what that does is that it removes the layer mask. The original picture is still there and intact, still on its own layer and that sort of thing, which works out great. And then I can start the process all over again. Now, starting the process over again, let's talk about that. This image is my picture, obviously. I took the time to select him as meticulous as I could, and then I saved that selection. Remember, I talked about that in the selection primer in lecture 5. So if I go to my select menu, load selection is available. When I choose load selection, right here where it says channel, I could choose outline here, which is the outline that goes around him that I spent a lot of time in that select and mask to go and get the selection around him. And then even within I got the little strap on his football helmet. I got, you know, the strap selected well. I got in between the background and between the mask there. I got that selected out pretty good. And all the way around them, got a pretty tight selection around him. Now what can I do? This is an option. You don't have to do it this way. I'm just showing you another way of making the same thing. Instead of going in select and mask and doing all the process in there and setting that up. If I already have the selection made like I do now, and it's pretty good like it is now, at the bottom of the layers palette, there is a button that looks like a square with a square with a circle cut out of it. It allows you to create a layer mask. This is before select a mask existed. This is what you had to do, and it's still here and it's still available. So I can click onto that button once. It will create the layer mask. on whatever layer that I'm on. So I already had the layer duplicated. That was already done. And then I got the selection pulled up. That's already done. So now I can just click on this button here to add the layer mask. And now that part is done. So I got the layer mask done. It's a much tighter selection, better than what I had before. That looks great and it's wonderful. Now I can do the other things that I need to do because, I took the time. I took the time before, got this done and done right, save the file, save the selection, save the file so I can pull it up just like I did right now.